Good night, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, welcome into the live, guys. Welcome again. Now, tonight we are going to continue with the reading of our book here, The Anointed Child. So, for those of you who have been here with me, you know we have been reading this book for a few days now. The Anointed Child, and it's a story of a young woman who was brutally and viciously sexually violated, and now she has found herself to be pregnant. And on top of that, she is engaged to a very promising young man who is training to become a minister. So here comes the dilemma as to whether or not she should get an abortion, or if she should carry the baby to term. And as that mental conflict rages on, now she has been told that because she's attending a Christian college, they can no longer have her attending college, considering that she's a pregnant, unwed student. So poor Dinah. Dinah is having a terrible time. She's unable to tell her mother or her father what has happened to her and what is going on. She's unable to tell, basically, she's unable to tell anybody. It's just a few friends who know her, and the boyfriend, and a roommate, and another friend who really knows what happened. The rest of it is just speculation. And the speculation is that she and the boyfriend, who is training to become the minister, has taken their relationship into marital waters before they have actually become married. And so with that rumor flying around, and her having to deal with the fact that she was violated, and the fact that the perpetrator has not been caught, then she has to leave school. How she's going to face her parents? How is she going to go back up? There is just a mountain of problems that's facing this young lady, and it's almost as though she can see no way out. She doesn't know where to turn. And we see where she had even had intentions of unaliving herself. And if her friend hadn't shown up when he did, chances are she probably would have, because life has become so unbearable for her, and so overwhelming at this moment. She basically does not know what to do. But today we are going to continue with the reading of the book The Anointed Child, because we want to see what else has happened in the life of Dinah and how she is coping with her circumstances at the moment. So we are going to be continuing with the reading. Welcome into the live, guys. Come on in, and let us talk. Let us read. Now, last time we saw where Dynah went in to see the dean, and they had a conversation pertaining to what was going on with her. And it was at that time that she was told that she wasn't going to be allowed to continue coming to school The only way she was going to be allowed to continue coming to school is if she made an announcement and tell everybody that she was the student who was raped and that she was pregnant, and then use the pregnancy as a way of teaching the other students that you can overcome, and that abortion is not the way to go, something along that line. But I don't know what she's planning on doing. We will find out as we continue to read the book. The Anointed Child, written by Francis Rivers. Come along with me, guys, and let's read. When Dean Abernathy said no more, Dinah searched his face. She saw something in his expressions that filled her with confusion. NLC doesn't condone abortion, Dean Abernathy said slowly, choosing his words carefully. I understand why Ethan feels as he does. I imagine I would feel the same way under the circumstances. You and Ethan are both well aware of our stand on this issue, though the hard cases are seldom discussed. He leaned back, as though withdrawing from her as far as possible. We can hope, however. Sometimes God and nature are merciful in these matters. He hesitated and then continued, looking straight at her. If you were to miscarry, no one would ever know what happened. Unless Ethan decided to tell them, came the unbidden thought. Should I pray I miscarry? She wondered if Dean Abernathy was aware of the subtle pressures he was bringing to bear upon her. If she wasn't pregnant, she could stay. If she was, she had to leave. And if she came to him and informed him the pregnancy was over, he wouldn't ask how it happened. And no one need ever know what happened to her. God knows the desires of her heart. She frowned, confused and heartsick. Was he saying that abortion was the easier and most reasonable way? But if she chose it, he didn't want to know about it? As long as she was unpregnant, she would continue as before? Ethan. His concerns were focused on Ethan. He was worried about how all this affected Ethan's schooling and Ethan's career and Ethan's service to the Lord. It was Ethan's future that mattered, not hers. Oh, I'm expendable. Lowering her head, she clasped her hands. She wasn't being fair. It wasn't that she didn't matter at all. It was that she mattered less. She didn't have the gifts Ethan did. Gifts that might expand the kingdom and bring people to the Lord. She was just an ordinary girl, nothing special. Pray as your heart leads you, Dinah, Dean Abernathy said. She met his gaze and saw sympathy there, but resignation as well. She understood. He felt he had no choice. He had to think of what was best for the majority. He had to think of NLC's reputation, and may God's will be done. A platitude to salve her wounds. He couldn't possibly know how much those words hurt her. When Dean Abernathy stood, Dinah knew the interview was over. Gathering her book bag, she stood as well. He approached with all the appearances of a concerned father, but she felt his hand on her back, firmly guiding her to the door. Let me know what you decide, he said, opening it for her. I'll hold you in my daily prayers, he had said. Thank you, she said, giving the appropriate rote response. She already knew what she was going to do. Ethan was waiting for her in the student union, a theology book open in front of him, a styrofoam cup of herbal tea beside his notes. He was so intent upon his studies that he didn't OMG. Hold on, guys. All right, back with you guys. I'm sorry about that. Let us continue. When Dean Abernathy stood, Dinah knew the interview was over. Gathering her book back, she stood as well. He approached with all the appearance of a concerned father, but she felt his hand on her back, firmly guiding her to the door. Let me know what you decide, he had said, opening it for her. I'll hold you in my prayers, he had said. Thank you, she said, giving the appropriate route response. She already knew what she was going to do. Alberto, ¿cómo está, mi amor? How are you doing? Ethan was waiting for her in the student union, a theology book open in front of him, a styrofoam cup of herbal tea beside his notes. He was so intent upon his studies that he didn't even notice her until she was standing beside the table. His eyes flickered, faint color stealing into his face as he stood and drew back a chair for her. Do you want some tea? He had asked. No, thank you. Why don't you put your book back down? I'm not staying long. Beneath the edge of the table, she worked at the ring on her finger. As soon as it slipped off, she set it on the table between them. Ethan stared at it and then looked at her. What are you doing? I'm breaking off our engagement. She didn't expect to see the shock or wounded look in his eyes, nor the relief mingled with hurt. He was as confused as she was, but she knew what she was doing was best for them both. Now y'all remember that I had said she should break it off and call it a day? Because there's no way that they will recover from this. No way. Dinah, I'm sorry I told Dean Abernathy. I was upset. Can't you try to understand and forgive me? When she told me what was at stake, I it's not something you can hide forever, Ethan, she said, absolving him, absolving him yet again of guilt. Everyone receives absolution but me. God. Ethan covered the ring with his hand and tucked it quickly into his blazer pocket out of sight. I'll keep it until you are ready to take it back. I won't take it back. Can't we work this out? No, we can't, Ethan. The only way things would work is if I was willing to do what you want me to do. And I'm not. She shook her head, looking down at her bare hand. Her throat closed hot and tight. She hadn't known him well enough. Or maybe she had. Maybe she had just expected too much of him. If she stayed any longer, she would make matters worse by crying and giving everyone around them something to wonder and talk about, and him more cause for embarrassment. Shifting her book bag, she stepped back. Stay, Dinah. Please, talk to me. It was too late for talk. There's no point. Nothing's going to change. What are you going to do? I'm going home. One phone call to Dean Abernathy and a few hours to pack her things was all the time it took to end her life at NLC. She knew she should call Joe and say goodbye, but she took the easy way out and wrote a note to him instead. She put it in an envelope and stamped it. She had dropped it in the mailbox on her way out of town. If my mom calls, don't tell her anything. I'll be home in a week, and they'll know all about it then. Promise? I promise, Janet had said grimly. Are you sure you are done? Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Couldn't you think about it? No. It would all be so much easier if you... No, it wouldn't. January. Janet, even if I do have an abortion, it's not going to change my feelings. Ethan and I are through. He loves you, Dinah. I know he does. It would work out. It would. At what cost, though? I love him too, but it's not enough. It's just not. Why? Just tell me why. Because I don't trust him anymore. And if you can't trust someone, you can't build any kind of lasting relationship with them. Like God, she thought, aching inside. She didn't trust him anymore either. Closing her suitcase, she locked it and swung it off the bed onto the floor. I've got to go. She wanted to be as far away from NLC by nightfall as she possibly could. Oh God, what are my parents going to say when they hear this? What am I going to tell them? It was too much for Dinah to bear. She would have enough time to think about that on the long drive home to California. What do you mean she's gone? Joe said, wanting to shake Ethan out of his self-centered lethargy. Gone where? Home. Just leave me alone, would you please? I'm upset enough already without you coming in at me. And he had a presentation to prepare, the most important presentation of the year. He couldn't afford to go on obsessing about Dinah and her problems. What about school? Spring break is in a few weeks. She can't afford to leave. Well, She quit. Quit? Joe watched the colors seep into Ethan's face, eyes narrowing. He frowned. Why? How should I know? You seem to know everything, and I know you know something. Joe's anger heated his blood. What made her quit? Or should I ask? Who should I ask? Ethan glared, furious. Don't look at me. Nothing made Dinah do anything. She wouldn't listen to reason. She wouldn't listen to anybody. She decided this for herself, along with a few other choice things along the way. She gave my ring back. Did you know that? Just tossed it on the table in the student union in front of everybody, like it meant nothing to her. I called her this morning, and Janet said she had left. Yesterday. Just packed up and split. That's how much she cares. Joe's hand clenched. The sheen of tears in Ethan's eyes was the only thing that kept him from knocking him across the apartment kitchen. Slamming out of the apartment, he drove to the dorm and called Janet from the lobby. Pacing, he raked his hand through his hair. He was going to have to get it cut again soon. NLC had rules about hair going past the collar. NLC had rules about everything. He frowned, wondering if the rules had anything to do with what was going on. No way! They wouldn't be that heartless. Not if they knew the whole story. He saw the elevator doors open and headed for Janet. What happened? Dean Abernathy spoke with her. Great. What did he say to her, though? Her grades were dropping and her scholarships were at risk. No. He was concerned about Ethan's performance. Unfortunately, during the interview yesterday, Ethan told Dean Abernathy that Dinah was pregnant. Did he tell him the circumstances? Yes, but it didn't make any difference. What do you mean it didn't make any difference? She told him the rest. Joe stood for a moment, the heat pouring through him, his heart pounding. They were heartless. Liz, what's up? How are you doing, sister? Good to see you. Welcome. Okay, guys, I'm trying to read this book here for us. I tried to talk her out of leaving, Joe, but she had made up her mind. How upset was she? She was going to stop somewhere along the highway and buy another bottle of pills. She seemed okay. She packed most of her stuff in boxes and labeled them. Oh my God, poor Dinah. I'm supposed to ship them UPS in a week. She figured she would be home by then. What route is she taking? Oh, Joe, you'd never catch up with her. Don't be crazy. Besides, she didn't say. I-80? I would guess. I hope that stupid car of hers makes it. She promised to call me every night and let me know that she's safe. Did she? She made it to Des Moines. She made it to Des Moines last night. She called about 10:15. She's probably halfway across Nebraska by now. Call me the minute you hear from her again. He strode across the lobby and punched the glass door handles with the heels of his hand and flung the doors open. Going down the steps, he headed across the campus. People moved out of his way and watched him pass. He marched up the steps of the administration building, banged the door open, and strode down the corridor towards the dean's office. May I help you? I want to see Dean Abernathy. Do you have an appointment? No. Buzz him. Joe Guillermo. Tell him it's important. I beg your pardon, she said with raised eyebrows. You're being rather impudent. Forget it. I'll tell him myself. He stepped around her desk and headed for the door. Just a minute, young man, she said, rising. You can't just go in there. Joe banged the door open and strode into the dean's office. Dean Abernathy was sitting behind his desk, going over some papers. Startled, he glanced up and annoyed at the interruption. He had a he had a board meeting tonight and wanted to go over his request for more funds for the sociology department. And there was going to be a discussion on adding a psychology course. What's going on? I'm sorry, Dean, the secretary said, flustered. He wouldn't listen. He just, it. Dinah, Joe said. Dinah Carey. Dean Abernath. Dean Abernathy's heart sank. Removing his glasses, he stood. It's all right, Mrs. Halverson. You may go. Close the door behind you, please. He dropped his glasses on the desk and looked at Joe wearily. I know that you and Ethan are friends, he said. Dinah is a friend of mine too. All well and good, the dean said, raising his hand in hopes of silencing the torrent he was sure Joe Guillermo wanted to get off his chest. These hot-blooded Italians. But I have no intention of discussing Dinah Carey with you or anyone else. Fine, I'll just reenact what went on in here day before yesterday, and you tell me if I'm right or not. I hope to God I'm wrong. I said, you summoned Ethan because you were concerned about his lack of concentration over the past few months, right? He told you Dinah was raped. Then he spilled his guts and said she's pregnant. Now see here. So you summoned her and informed her of the rules and regulations about unwed pregnancies on NLC. People might get the wrong idea about how she got pregnant, right? How dare you talk to me in this manner? She ought to go public to save Ethan's reputation and hers. Saniki! Joe, what's up? How you all doing? Boy, I'm just addicted to reading the book. The book is so good. Right? Of course. If she was too ashamed and traumatized to do that, well, she'd have to leave. Heat flooded Dean Amanathi's face. That's enough, Mr. Guillermo. Besides, Joe went on, temper at full steam. Even if the truth did come out, there's always a chance students might choose to think she and Ethan made up some story to cover fornication. Now get out of here, you sanctimonious, foristical. What? What did they call him? You sanctimonious, pharisaical? Well, on the people, cause you all know me like I gotta know. I know that gotta be a cuss word, but I know it's probably cussing in biblical terms, but I don't know that word. I have got to look it up. It may be calling him a Pharisees. I don't know, but let me see. PHARISECAL. Let me see. Pharisaical, excessively or hypocritically pious. Oh Lord. Holier than thou, pharisaical, pietistical, sanctimonious, self-righteous, pious, having or showing or expressing reverence for a deity. Okay. So there you have it, guys. Oh, wow. Let us continue, my friends. Let's continue. Now get out of here, you sanctimonious pharisaical. If you continue with this attitude, I'll have to take disciplinary actions against you. Do it. Go ahead. I'd like nothing better than to go before the board of directors and tell them what happened in here. I wonder if they'd all share your narrow minded, self righteous view of how to handle the situation. Now get out of my office. Now. I'll get out of your office. I'll even get off your campus. But first, I want you to know what you did. He walked to the edge of the desk and jabbed a finger at him. You aborted her. What are you talking about? I do no such thing. No? Well, you think about it. Think long and hard, Dean Abernathy. God gave you the perfect opportunity to show Dinah some compassion. And what did you do? You scraped her out of your neat, perfect little world and dumped her in the trash. Dean Abernathy's eyes flickered, his face paling. Joe saw the words had sunk deep. Yeah, he said, filled with sorrow. That's what you did. You and a lot of other people who ought to know better. Turning, he headed for the door. Pausing, he looked back. The purpose of NLC is to train up godly men and women so they can bring the light of Christ into every walk of life. Isn't that so? Yes. Well, you tell me how we can do that, Dean. Tell me how on God's green earth we can dare offer salvation to a dying world when we are so busy shooting our own wounded. He walked out, slamming the door behind him. Striding out of the building, Joe wondered what he could do to help Dinah now. He didn't know where she was, and even if he did, he couldn't get to her fast enough. Somewhere in the middle of Nebraska. Jesus, God, please watch over her. Put angels over and around her. Keep her safe. Give her your peace in all this. Don't let her lose hope. He closed his eyes, grief washing over him. Don't let us lose hope, Lord, no matter how hopeless or hopelessly we fail. Janet called each evening right after she spoke with Dinah. She made it to Grand Island in Nebraska. She's in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She's staying at some little dump in Salt Lake City, Joe. I could hear noise coming through her walls. She's in Wells, Nevada. She was calling from a payphone in a truck stop across the street. Joe kept praying, Lord, please keep her car running. Father, don't let her break down somewhere in the desert. Jesus, let her feel your presence. Keep her safe, please. She's in Reno. She sounded really tired, Joe. She said she should be home by tomorrow afternoon. She promised to call as soon as she gets there. Let me know as soon as you hear something. Janet paused. How is Ethan doing? Joe stared at the wall grimly. He aced his presentation. Dana pulled up in front of the house on Ocean Avenue at 2 o'clock the following afternoon. She had been unable to sleep the night before and had departed Reno at 7. She had made 2 stops, one for gas in Sacramento and another for something to eat at a Denny's in Vacaville. Exhausted, she unlocked the front door and entered the house. Her parents were seldom home at this time of day. Dad would be in his downtown office working, and Mom would most likely be grocery shopping, reorganizing the clothing closet at the church, or visiting one of the parishioners shut into their homes by age or infirmity. Now that you're off on your own, there's no use in me sitting around doing nothing, she had said the last time Dinah had come home. Setting her suitcases down, Dinah picked up the phone and punched in a number. She counted the rings on the other end. 1, 2, 3, 4. The answering machine came on. Hi, this is Janet. I'm sorry, but I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message and your number at the sound of the beep, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Bye. I'm home, Jan. Everything's fine. Thanks. Setting the receiver back in its cradle, she picked up her suitcases and headed for the stairs. Her room was exactly the way she had left it. The full-size bed was covered with a sunflower patterned comforter and white and yellow pillows with eyelet lace trims. Priscilla curtains covered the windows. A long, pale green cushion adorned the window seat. A high white shelf held a zoo of stuffed animals, which she had collected since she was a baby, while the bookshelves were filled with children's classics and precious mementos figurines her mother and father had given her for each birthday and Christmas. A picture of her and Ethan standing on the shore of Lake Michigan sat on top of the white French provincial dresser. It had been taken the day after he asked her to marry him. Joe had snapped the picture. He must have sent an enlargement to her parents. Setting her suitcases down, Dana picked up the ornate brass frame and looked at Ethan. He was smiling, his arm around her shoulders, looking proud and confident and happy. Their entire relationship flashed before her mind like a reel of film speeded up. The man of her dreams, her knight in shining armor. Remembering the way Ethan had looked the last time she saw him, she closed her eyes. She had seen hurt and anger in his eyes in that unguarded moment, and she had seen something else, something that had torn her heart apart. Relief. Oh Lord, Lord, what have you done to me? I have torn, I have torn that I might heal. Are you really so cruel and arbitrary, inflicting wounds and then healing? For what? Why? Opening her eyes, she stared at Ethan's smiling face, his hand firm upon her shoulder as though she was some kind of trophy he had won. He seemed to mock her, as God was mocking her. I thought you loved me. Oh, what a joke. Turning the frame around, she pried back the metal holders and opened it. She removed the picture and tossed the empty frame on the bed. Turning the picture around, she looked at Ethan as she tore the picture in half, then into fourths and eighths, and as she walked into her bathroom, opening the commode, she dumped the pieces into the bowl of water and flushed. She let out a breath. She let out her breath slowly, as though she had been holding it for months. It was over, finished. She could put finis into this part of her life. Now, for the rest. Dana went back into her bedroom and began unpacking her suitcases. Lyndon, my darling, my love, how are you doing? Good to see you. Welcome, my dear. Hannah Carey. Hannah Carey had had strong premonitions for months that something was wrong with her daughter. She had been praying unceasingly for Dinah since January. It had started. It had started when she awaked in the middle of the night. She hadn't been dreaming, or if she had, she couldn't remember what it was about. All she knew was that something had happened. Something awful. She had called Dinah the next day, but Janet assured her all was well and Dinah was fine. The few conversations she had had with her daughter over the past months had convinced her both were untrue. Now she knew her premonitions were founded in something concrete. Dinah's little blue Toyota with the NLC sticker in the back window was parked in front of the house, and it was a week too early for spring break. Dinah, Hannah said, entering the kitchen from the garage. Dumping her purse on the counter, she headed through the archway into the family room. Dinah! Mom! Glancing up, Hannah saw her daughter running along the corridor and down the stairs. Oh, baby, she said, filled with joy at the sight of her. Laughing, she held her arms open as Dinah flew into them the way she had as a child. Thank God! Oh, thank you, God, she had said. Oh, Mom, Dinah said, clinging to her mom as she had when she was a little girl and had been hurt. I had to come home. I had to. I missed you and Daddy so much. We missed you too, darling, Anna said, crying happily, stroking the blonde hair back. She had missed her more than she could or should express. The hardest thing she had ever had to do was let Dinah go. That day when she and Douglas had put their daughter on the flight to Chicago had been almost unbearable. She gave her to the Lord before she was even born. Douglas had said when she cried all the way home from the airport, "Don't you think you can trust God to take care of her now that she's a young woman? I've been so worried about you, honey." Drawing back, Anna cried. Anna tried to search her daughter's face. "You're home a week early than we'd hoped, and in your car. We were going to wire you money so you could fly. Can we sit down, Mom?" There it was again, that feeling she couldn't shake. A sick dread filled Hannah. "Have you eaten, darling? Come on into the kitchen and I'll fix you something." "I'm not very hungry, Mom." "Some milk, maybe? I made cookies yesterday. Toll House, Dinah's favorite. It had been a kind of therapy to fix them, something to do to kill time while waiting for Dinah to come home. And now she was home, and she worried, and the worry didn't cease. Instead, it grew. Dinah laughed bleakly. "Okay," she said, though Anna sensed it was more to soothe her mother than because she wanted anything to eat. Anna took 6 cookies from the ceramic bear and arranged them in a pretty china plate. She poured a tall glass of milk and brought both to the kitchenette table in the bay window overlooking the street. "It's so good to have you home again," she said, going back to the cupboard to take down the tin of flavored coffee. She filled a coffee cup with water and put it in the microwave, tapping in the numbers and pushing start. She glanced back and saw Dinah toying with one of the cookies. "We have been counting the days," she'd said. She noticed the dark shadows beneath Dinah's blue eyes, the pallor of her skin. Her hair was limp, as though she hadn't shampooed it for days. Her face was thinner, with lines of strain around her mouth. "Oh, God, what happened to my baby?" "Daddy is in Los Angeles until tomorrow night," Hannah went on, spooning instant coffee into the cup of steaming water. "He goes about once a month now." She brought her coffee over and sat down at the table with her daughter. As Anna watched Dinah eat one cookie, she noticed something else. Heart sinking, she put her hands around the cup, trying to stay calm. Her daughter's lower lip quivered slightly, and Anna found herself fighting tears of empathy. Lyndon says, "I always like to listen." You are so welcome, darling. It's my absolute pleasure. You can talk to me, honey. You can talk to me about anything. It's so hard. Life was hard, grueling, heartbreaking. She could see how hurt her daughter was, and already she was creating scenarios in her mind. Jesus, I thought everything was going so smoothly. I thought her life was all laid out like a beautiful mosaic glorifying you. It's about Ethan, isn't it? Partly. Dinah sniffed. Anna took a hanky from her sweater sleeve. She had gotten in the habit of tucking one into a pocket or sleeve or waistband since Dinah was a baby. Douglas always teased her about it. Old habits were hard to break. Thanks, Dinah mumbled, smiling in self deprecation and blowing her nose softly. The engagement's off, Mom. Oh my God. I gathered that, Hannah said gently. No ring. I gave it back to him. Thank God it had been the other way around. She had prayed her daughter would never feel that kind of rejection. You must have had a good reason, she said. Was another girl involved? Or was it his relentless ambition? Douglas had noticed that when they met Ethan. He's on fire, all right, but sometimes that kind of fire can burn churches down. No, Mom, I just I just didn't trust him anymore. Something tightened inside of Anna. Did he try to do something to you? Dinah's eyes came up. No, Mom. Anna knew she was pressing and lowered her head, staring into the black coffee. I'm sorry. Of course he would. Questions poured through her mind, one tumbling on top of another, rousing anger with them. Not at Dinah. Ethan must have done something to her daughter. Dinah had been head over heels in love with him last summer. Why would she break off the engagement now? I don't know how to tell you this. Anna reached across the small table and took her daughter's hand, hair curling like a snake in the pit of her gut. I love you, honey. Nothing you can tell me will ever alter that. Nothing. Dinah's hand gripped hers, hanging on as if it were a lifeline. It happened in January, she began slowly. It just I just finished work at Stanton Manor House. My car was in the shop, so I was walking to the bus stop. A car, a white car with Massachusetts plates, pulled up beside me. Anna listened, her heart beating faster and faster as Dinah told what had happened. Tears came, flooding her eyes and pouring down her cheeks. Oh God, where were you? Where were you when this was happening? Dinah's fingers kept tightening as though she was afraid her mother would pull away from her. When Dinah finished telling about the ordeal at the hospital and the questioning at the police station, she stopped. Hannah felt her trembling. I love you. I really do, she said softly. I love you so much. I'm sorry this happened to you. Dinah looked up at her mother's stricken face, saw the tears rolling down her cheeks and the compassion in her eyes. It was easier to go on after that. Ethan and I started having problems. He didn't see me in the same way anymore, Mom. Not for a while anyway. Joe helped him a lot. He'd talk to him about his feelings, and he'd talk to me. Joe? You mean Joe Guillermo? Ethan's roommate? He's from Los Angeles, a senior. He's the exact opposite of Ethan in everything. Dark hair and eyes, tainted background. He came to the Lord in his late teens. He said someone dragged him to Victory Outreach, and he has never been the same since. If it weren't for Joe, I. She shook her head, remembering how close she had come to swallowing all those pills. Anna wondered if Joe was the reason Dinah had broken the engagement off. But Joe could fix everything. Dinah let out her breath slowly. I'm pregnant, Mom. Oh, God! Anna shut her eyes, feeling the hard punch of those words. Oh, no! Oh, no! Oh, no! You, can't! You can't! She was at a loss for words. Ethan was called into the dean's office because he wasn't doing as well in school. He was so stressed out over me and what I was going to do about the pregnancy. He told the dean, and then the dean called me in. I was given choices. I couldn't face any of them, Mom. I just couldn't. I could understand his point. I understand Eth I understood Ethan's point as well, but it didn't help me. But it didn't help me very much. I gave the ring back to Ethan right after talking with the dean. And then I quit school. You quit school? Anna saw the cost of that in Dinah's eyes. Another dream crushed. I had to, Mom. I couldn't stay there. Honey, they don't stone people anymore. Oh, yes, Mom, they do. They just didn't kill the one they judged anymore. They left them broken and wounded. Anna clasped both of her daughter's hands. We'll get through this, honey. Your dad and I love you very, very much. We'll help you. Dinah started to cry, deep, retching sobs of relief. She heard the scrape of her mother's chair and then felt her mother's arms firm around her. Her mother cried with her, holding her and stroking her and saying over and over that it would be all right. Everything would be all right. She was home now. She was safe. They would take care, good care, of her. The long days of travel caught up with her. The stress that had held her in a vice grip for so many days dissolved in the warmth of her mother's embrace. She leaned into her, hanging on, grateful to have expunged her burdens, grateful her mother would now shoulder them. You are done in, Anna said after a long while. Come on, honey, let's get you into a hot shower. I'll fix you something to eat. After that, you can go to bed and sleep as long as you want. As those things were being done, Anna stilled Anna stilled the wild beat of her heart, silenced the screams inside her, capped the volcanic pain that threatened to erupt, and poured out like hot lava, destroying everything in its path. When Dinah was safely tucked into bed and asleep, Anna Carey went into her closet and knelt. Oh God, oh God in heaven, why do you still hate me so much? Will you never ever forget what I did? She wept for herself and for her atonement child who slept in the room down the hall. She made it, Joe. That was the message on my answering machine. She got there about 1:30 in the afternoon. Thank you, Jesus. How'd she sound? Tired? Smiling, Joe leaned back into the worn overstuffed chair he had bought at a thrift store and nestled the portable phone between his ear and his shoulder. Oh man, I'm feeling good right now. Me too. I've been worried sick about her. How's Ethan? Plugging along. I think it's beginning to sink in what's really happened. He was crying into his beer last night. I didn't know he drank. Yeah, root beer. Janet laughed. Do you think he'll call? Joe leaned his head back. I think he will. Got a pen and some paper? I'll give you her number in case Ethan needs it. Joe got up and headed for his desk. Rummaging around, he found a that's a big pen, and some ruled paper. Okay, shoot. She read off the Carey's telephone number and asked him to repeat it. You got it. First time. You'd make a great secretary, Joe. She laughed and then added blithely, say hi when you talk to her for me, would you, Joe? Tell her I love her too. Brat. I'll call her a couple days after she's had a chance to rest and settle in. You mean after Ethan's had first shot? Don't you? You have an evening class, he said, smiling ruefully. Now get going. He pushed the off button and dropped the portable phone onto the desk. Joe wrote the number onto a sheet of clean paper along with a note. Dinah made it home safely. Got there around 1:30 p.m. Today, he stuck it in the front of the refrigerator with a magnet. Breathing a prayer of thanksgiving and relief, he raked his hands back through his disheveled hair. He took a shower, a long, hot shower. Tossing the towel in the direction of the plastic laundry basket, Joe went into his bedroom, flopped down onto his twin mattress, and dragged the blankets over him. Joe Guillermo slept soundly for the first time in a week. And now that that's the best sleep Joe has gotten in a week, because he had been so worried sick about Dinah and seems to always be present for her just to ensure that she didn't do anything crazy. And now Anna, who is Dinah's mother, is trying her best to comfort her daughter. She's trying to reassure her that everything is going to be okay. I wonder what the mother did. Well, we will find out tomorrow when we come back to reading this book, The Anointed Child. We will continue reading it tomorrow as we find out how is Nathan handling the break off of the engagement, and how will Dinah's parents handle the fact that she is pregnant and had to drop out of school. This entire story is filled with so many twists and turns that I can't wait to continue the reading tomorrow. So that's where we are going to end the reading for tonight, my friends. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue the reading of The Anointed Child by Francine Rivers. Once again, I want to say thanks to everybody who came into the live. Joe and Liz and Linda and my love and Albert, Saniki, and everybody else who had come into the live. And those who did not say a word, I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all so much, and I hope you all have been enjoying the reading of this book as much as I have been enjoying bringing it to you. Until next time, my friends, this is going to be Trev from Travessence, where your journey matters. Saniki, have yourself a good night, my love, and I will see you all sometime tomorrow. See you all tomorrow, guys. It's bedtime. I'm on grandmama duties.